video, I'm going to be building an awesome gaming PC featuring Intel's brand new 13700K. This is an awesome build for 1440p and 4K gaming, so let's dive right into it. The Cooler Master GM27 FQS comes equipped with a 27-inch Quad HD panel, 165Hz refresh rate, and a customizable ARGB stand. With a super fast IPS panel, you aren't sacrificing image quality for response time, while support for FreeSync Premium and Nvidia G-Sync make it a great all-rounder. Learn more about this awesome panel at the first link in the description below. And a big thanks to Cooler Master for making this video possible. Now then, let's go ahead and dive right into all of our parts, shall we? And start off with the brand new Intel Core i7-13700K. With 16 cores in total, 8 performance and 8 efficiency, it also boasts 24 threads and some insane clock speeds. Like, genuinely, Intel have killed it when it comes to single thread performance. It's an area that Intel always seem to win out, and with more cores on this chip than the Ryzen alternative, it's potentially an awesome option for a build like this one. One of the great advantages of Intel 13th gen as well is that it's basically an improvement over the already very good 12th gen architecture, and that means that the motherboards, like last generation, also support DDR4 memory. This is the brand new ASUS ROG Strix Z790A. Now, technically, you can use existing Z690 motherboards with a BIOS update. It's the same socket, same basic feature set, but I figured that a new board is not a bad idea. You've got guaranteed support out the box, and this one in particular has a really nice feature set. It's also box fresh, which is always a nice feeling. Of course, as well, hidden in this little cubby hole here, you don't want to forget this bit, you've got your Wi-Fi antenna. The motherboard has Wi-Fi 6 built in, so you can get connected right away without too much hassle. There's also a load of peels on this motherboard. It's brand new. Take a listen. Oh, doesn't that sound amazing? You may be able to notice already we've got a white colour scheme going on. We're going to go for a slightly lighter build overall, and this ASUS board does a great job of that. Taking a quick flick around some of the features that it's got on board, you of course got the LGA 1700 socket for 12th and 13th gen processors. You've got plenty of heat sinks on our PCI Gen 5 M.2 slots and a PCI Generation 5 PCI slot as well. You've got this cool little clip which you can push in that actually releases the graphics card, which is kind of addictive. And if we head round to the rear I.O., you'll also find 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, Wi-Fi 6E, all your USBs, and Pac-Man! It's got Pac-Man on the rear I.O.
Why?
I don't know. Right, what we're going to do at this stage is we're obviously going to install our 13th gen processor. To do this, it's really simple. You just want to pull up the retention arm on the socket, release the top of the socket, kind of opens like a gull wing door. We're going to open our little 13th gen up. Now, you might be thinking, James, how does this CPU compare to the new Ryzen ones in terms of size and form factor? Well, conveniently, I just this morning received a Ryzen 7000 processor. Long story, the postman put it in the garden for 24 hours, or the backyard, depending on where you're from, and somehow it managed to survive. We could have had a soggy CPU, and nobody wants one of those. You can see that the Ryzen chip is actually, I think it's smaller. And maybe about the same, slightly shorter but slightly wider. The IHS, the integrated heat spreader on the Ryzen chip, does look a bit more cool, but I think our Intel CPU might provide us a bit more performance, which at the end of the day is the thing we're really bothered about. Sorry, AMD. Shenanigans aside, we're going to pop the CPU in here with a little triangle on the bottom left-hand corner, return the socket down, add the arm into place, and then it should remove our black plastic protective cover for us. I've been flamed before for throwing this away. You do want to keep hold of it in case you have to RMA your motherboard, send it back, and it's going to protect the pins on there, as they are very delicate. Now then, we're also at this stage going to install the RAM. Ebuyer very kindly sent out not only this, but all of the components for today's build, so shout out Ebuyer. 32 gigs of Corsair's Vengeance RGB Pro. It's DDR4, meaning it's way cheaper than DDR5, saving us money, and it's white. Plus, with 4 8GB DIMMs, it's going to populate every slot and look awesome. Corsair iCUE really is top tier when it comes to controlling all your RGB and all of that jazz. Is it expensive? Absolutely. But when you're spending, what, a couple $1,000s, couple £1,000 on a PC, the thing you absolutely want it to do is look good and be easily customizable. I can't actually remember the last time I did a build with 4 RAM DIMM slots. It makes me happy inside. Just that feeling of fullness cannot be replicated. It's easy to show you guys as well, because you just pull back every single clip. These ones aren't clips, they're just static, and we can slide the RAM in. Stick number 1, boom. Stick number 2, boom. Stick number 3, boom. Exactly. Now we're getting it. Last one, boom. Yes. Ram's in. That might be one of the most cringeworthy things I've ever done on the whole internet. While we're here, we're also going to go ahead and install our M.2 SSD. This is WD's Black SN770. I did a review of this drive over on Ebuyer's YouTube channel, actually, of all places, and found it to be pretty good. It's Gen 4, giving you faster next-gen speeds. Gen 3 tops out at like 3.5 gigabytes a second. This gives you over 5. It's not the fastest Gen 4 out there by any means, but it is very, very good value. This is the non-heatsink version of the drive, which means we can keep these stock ones on. If you get one with a heatsink, you have to remove these, and for our white colour scheme, that doesn't make much sense. So go ahead and pick yourself up a teeny tiny screwdriver that looks a little something like this, and then we're going to go ahead and just remove the top M.2 heatsink. Slide the drive into place, secure it with the toolless clip like so, and pop the heatsink back on. With that, the motherboard assembly, as we call it, which is the bit where we install everything onto the motherboard, is complete. There is one thing we're going to do though before popping this into the case, specifically the installation of this, our CPU cooler. This is Thermaltake's TH360. It's got 3 120mm white fans as standard, a white water block, white tubes, and customizable RGB. It's also one of the best value 360mm coolers I could find, and although we're spending a lot of money, it's always good to know that you're not wasting it, that you're not going overboard for the sake of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just open up the box of our cooler, and in there we're going to locate our installation guide, because there may be like a backplate or some other hardware that's easier to install now than later on. By the looks of it, yes, there is. There's a backplate in this included bag of accessories and mounting hardware that's going to make our life a lot easier now, or as I say, a lot more tricky later. What we need to do is we need to take the included backplate, and there will be some really faint Intel text engraved. You want to make sure that's facing towards you. And then we're going to add in these little silver screws through the backplate from this side. They're then going to clamp on with these nice little black stiff plastic washers, is the best way I can explain them, before poking through the holes at the back of the board. Once that's done, you're then going to add on these sort of long black tubes, if you will, that have little gripper rods inside that will hold the backplate in and clamp it into place. Eventually, once the motherboard's in the case, we'll then secure the cooler down with these suspension screws, which you can actually pre-install now loosely to stop the backplate falling off. With that out the way, we can then go ahead and pop it into the case. Now, this is the Corsair iCUE 5000X RGB. It's the white version as well. I've gone for, as I say, that white theme today. You get 3 120mm fans at the front, tempered glass, and the whole thing, as I say, is white with a few grey accents. Unboxing a case is never an easy feat, but let's go ahead and give it a go. Now would be a good time to find a friend to help you, but I haven't got any friends. So I'm going to unbox the case all on my own. One of my favourite panels is this one at the back, which is a door. You open the door, you hide all your cables in this gap just here, and then they're out of sight and they're out of mind, which is always good to see. Oh, that was why it had tape on. I'm going to go ahead and remove that too. We can pop that on a little bit later. To install the board, I'm just going to lay the case down flat on the table, and then you want to pick it up by one of the solid bits. Don't pick it up by the RAM, as that can cause some damage. We can slot the motherboard into place, and already I am loving. I'm so here for this colour scheme. I can't even tell you. There we are. Look at that. Does that not already look absolutely sick? We're just going to pop the motherboard in. It's got a few screws, 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. Now then, we have got the motherboard in, and we can next up go and install this, the CPU cooler. Now, Thermaltake include these quite nice, actually, all white fans with white sleeved cables as well, which is very nice, going to blend in super well with the build. And in here, we have the pièce de résistance. It is, of course, our white radiator. You've got 360mm, the whole thing is like white powder coated. You've got a couple of black accents, but the Thermaltake logo and stuff is actually addressable RGB, making our life nice and easy. The radiator is nice and large, and also has a fairly thin profile, making it easy to install. I think I'm going to go for a top-mounted config to make sure that our pump is at the lowest point. To do this, we need to add in the fans to the bottom of the radiator first, outside the case, then screw the whole thing in to the top of the chassis. Add in the water block around the post we screwed in a bit earlier and tighten them up with the tension screws. We'll deal with the cables and the wiring a little bit later. You know what? That's looking pretty sick. Next up, I'm going to add in our graphics card. This is the ASUS ROG RTX 3080. Despite the new 14 4090 and 4080 being released, Nvidia aren't discontinuing the 3080, making this a really, really great shout for a build like this one. This is the ASUS ROG Strix cooler as well, with RGB that we can customize to make it match a little better. Sourcing an all-white GPU is hard and can be expensive, so this to me seemed like a very, very good choice. Honestly, these Strix cards are a bit of a beast. Take a look at that. So you've got 3 large fans on there, you've got 3 8-pin PCIe power connections, the support bracket here for where our GPU chip is actually located, the silicon. All in all, looks amazing. I think as well, peel time again. Here we go. So if we find a little tab to pull it off from, there we are. Oh, what a noise. We also want to take off this black plastic PCIe retention cover so we can go ahead and install the GPU. Hover the graphics card over the top PCIe slot and that will then show you which of the grey covers at the back need removing. A quick glance makes it look like the second and third ones. Oh, I was close. Makes it look like the second and third ones are the ones to be removed. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out. No! And then we can go ahead and pop the graphics card in. It's got the, I guess you have to push the button down.
It's in the lane.
Oh no! Thank you, Editor Dan. Editor Dan is saving me, as usual. So we've got to pop the GPU here. Oh. No, what are you doing? Keep still, man. Oh, beautiful. Go ahead and we're going to secure that back into place with the thumb screws we've just removed. Otherwise though, looking pretty good. If there was one thing I would add into this build, which I'm going to go ahead and do, is put another fan at the back. It's looking a bit empty at the back there, with the rest of the system being very heavy on the airflow. That probably ranks as one of the trickiest GPU installs I've ever had. I think the tolerances on the case and the GPU were just a little bit off, which made our life a bit more tricky than it needed to be. The good news is though, we've only got one more component really left to go. And that is the ASUS ROG Thor Platinum 850 watts. This is an 850 watt PSU. I think this is the one with the screen on it where it shows you your wattage usage in real time, which is very cool. I'm a bit alarmed because the box is absolutely huge. The last time I used a ROG PSU definitely wasn't this big. That's quite a cool little box. You've got the 2 compartments. I'm guessing the PSU is probably the longer side. Ah, very clever. Very nice. Yes, so if we open this up, you can see in here we've actually got like cable ties and all that jazz, and then under there our bag of included cables. And then in here, I'm guessing we have got, with a bit of luck, our power supply. Be a bit anticlimactic now if I opened it up and it had like a frog in or something, wouldn't it? Just open it up and Elon Musk is inside. And there we are, the ASUS ROG Thor 850 watts. Has a screen on as well, as predicted, and a fully modular interface on the front here. 80 plus platinum too, so great for efficiency, and also supports the next gen GPUs. Very, very nice indeed. I do have to say, braided cables is a very nice included touch. Maybe that will help us tie in our colour scheme with the graphics card. Black cables, perhaps, is actually not the worst shout in the world. Very nice. Not sure this plastic was really necessary. It was already in a bag. Why give me more things to throw away, ASUS? Look after the planet. So, with our PSU in and a few of our cables done, we should in theory be at a point where we can go ahead and turn this thing on and see if it actually boots up for the first time. Let me go ahead and grab a few things first. Bring it in, Daniel. Thank you very much. We have the world's finest gaming monitor. Look at that. What a specimen of beauty. Oh, and then last but not least, we're also going to add our HDMI cable in and give our system power. That's not a good one to forget. Now, I'm going to do a little thing in the PC building space that we like to do called jump starting your PC. So rather than using the front panel, we're just going to short 2 of the pins. Those 2. Oh, hello. That worked first time. We haven't got any Windows installed, but it should automatically take us into the BIOS. Is the monitor on? The monitor is on. Is it going to boot? The green light is on in the motherboard, which could be good news. Green light's on. Why have we not got any signal? Ah, yes, it's working, but there is a couple of problems to resolve. So it looks like 2 of our fans aren't quite spinning. I think we might just be short of 1 fan splitter. This was the culprit, 1 loose fan cable. We're going to pop that into the splitter at the back as well. And in theory, if you keep your eye on this fan at the rear, well, hey. RGB isn't working on the radiator, but I think I also know what that's about. This Thermaltake design has like a proprietary system. So we're going to go ahead, plug this in. Aha. Yes, look at that. I mean, it's giving me a bit of an epileptic fit. So let's reduce the speed right down. And we can jump into our BIOS with the F1 key and just go ahead and make sure it's picking up all of our hardware, set our RAM speed, and then dive into some performance figures. So look in here, we've got, yep, all of our kits are RAM, but we can tune that up with XMP, which we can enable just here, like so. There we go. And it's now running at the stock 3200 speed that it's designed to be at. And you can see our i7 13700K, 32 gigs of memory. I think it's time then we go ahead and install Windows Windows and test this PC with a wide variety of games. But first, it's time for the GeekaWhat signature montage. Just how good does this look with the PC powered up and the system ready to get gaming? Let's find out. Moving through into the performance of this build, and I'm glad to report that we've tested a massive range of titles to give you guys the best indication possible on how well this exact system performs. Let's start off easy, shall we? Get the system warmed up, so to speak, in Overwatch 2. At 4K ultra settings, we pulled in 167 frames per second on average, just about enough to saturate a 165Hz monitor to its full potential. This positive story carried on through into the likes of F1 2022, where the i7 and 3080 at 4K using the ultra high preset delivered 129 frames per second on average. To max this build out at 4K and still receive well in excess of 100 FPS is mightily impressive, and provided a really enjoyable gaming experience to say the least. This number was tested using the F1 inbuilt benchmark mode. In Spider-Man at 4K high settings, here we managed to pull in 97 frames per second on average. With this being more of an RPG game rather than a fast first-person shooter, these frame rates are still very solid. We don't necessarily need to surpass 100, and having the extra resolution and visual fidelity that comes with high settings is, in my view, in this title, more important. Battlefield 2042 and the good results carried on rolling in. 4K high settings with DLSS on performance mode delivered around 120 FPS on average. Battlefield 2042, not the most popular title out there, but an awesome performance tester nevertheless, as you'll see with many games in the list today. Full benchmark runs of all our systems can be found on our benchmarking YouTube channel, which I'll pop in the cards section now. Apex Legends next up, 4K high. Here we pulled in 122 frames per second on average. Very impressive indeed, with 111 and 101 for the 90 and 99th percentiles. Probably want slightly higher frames in Apex, and as such 1440p, where you're likely to access 140 FPS, would probably be my preferred shout here. Finally, to wrap things up, we also tested out Fortnite at 1080p competitive settings and pulled in a measly 235 FPS. Is that it? The game performed very well. This is of course when you set all your settings to low except the render distance, which you push to far. And with that pretty much wraps it up for this one. If you enjoyed today's video, get subscribed. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.